I'm Amanda, and I'm here with Allie, Megan, and Emily, and we are discussing the article Why an Arizona Woman Sued More Than 30 Hotels Where She Hadn't Stayed. The first thing I want to talk about is just the overall legitimacy of the lawsuit. Um, the hotel claims that it's extortion. An advocate for the disability rights in California says that it's an enforcement mechanism. If this woman is filing 180 suits in California, 150 suits in Arizona at 8,500 in damages each, is this legitimate? What do you guys think?
We're doing the I'm neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, I think I see both sides. I see, like, the hotels are kind of like, this isn't fair because this lady didn't even stay here. But then I understand that, like, there's literally a law that's supposed to allow access for all people with disabilities to be able to access things like the pool or hotels in general. So I can understand both sides, but I kind of feel like if she's just going out and suing all these hotels that didn't even inconvenience her, like, is that really for the money, or is it because she really cares about everyone having equal access?
Right, and kind of looking at it from the con stance of not agreeing with the lawsuit, it's, like the article said, it mentioned that it could be abuse of ADA. That because of the sheer number of lawsuits and the price per lawsuit with all the damages, I mean, is she really going to follow up and check all of those? Is she going to call everyone and visit everyone to see if they've followed through? Or is it really just let me get this money really quickly?
I agree that it is an enforcement mechanism. And I think it's okay that she didn't necessarily stay there or follow up, because if she felt that she couldn't stay there because of an accessibility issue. So I think it is the only way for her to advocate for compliance of the law. Yeah.
But in that case, does she need to be having $8,000 in damages paid to her per suit?
And that's the thing. If you're going to sue because you really care about the accessibility, why don't you just sue for, the changes, sue for them to make the accessible changes, not the $8,500 in damages per lawsuit.
Because now they have to pay you. Plus, it said it could be like up to $80,000 or like anywhere from like $20,000 to $80,000 worth of damages or something like that. That like a small hotel could have to fix, like all the little things, not just like a pool lift. So to be in compliance with the ADA.
Right.
So if it is legitimate, even if it's not legitimate, what should be the consequence then for the hotels? What really should they be having to do to compensate for their missing lifts or whatever other accessibility issue they may be missing?
I mean, I think a big thing is they talked about how there was that wiggle room with the readily achievable part of the law, where it's like, it was saying if there's significant difficulty or expense to a pre-existing facility, you don't have to make that change. So I think that was a really important thing to look at, that with some of those hotels, if they can prove that it's readily accessible, should they really have to change anything, from that con stance? And again, if they are being held accountable, it would just be, again, making the accessible changes and not necessarily paying out damages.
I think making like ADA almost like part of like a regulation, or like buildings have building codes. So maybe make certain things part of like a building code, especially things like a hotel or like malls or restaurants, places that are going to be accessed by a lot of people. Make that part of like a legal like public code or something. I don't know, for buildings.
Yeah, especially newer buildings there's no excuse to not be in compliance, especially with newer buildings.
Then whose job should that be? Because, I mean, there's an inspector for, the kitchen and the food safety that comes from one government organization. There's someone who comes in and assesses the structure as far as its safety concerned. but that's more from like is the building going to fall down kind of a standpoint. Like, who then should be responsible for the maintenance of the ADA compliance? Should there be a separate person for that?
I think that's a really interesting question, because I think there obviously needs to be somebody, because how it was saying that there were over 100 technical issues just for a bathroom. Like, that seems like it'd be so difficult for any, new business owner, small business owner to be aware of, or, not that they don't like ADA or want to be accessible. They just don't know everything that they should know. So I don't know who that would be, but there definitely seems like there should be someone that's checking that, and not then coming into this problem of things not being accessible, and then having businesses that can't pay, and all these other issues.
The fact that it's not already resolved, it's like, kind of, are these lawsuits the only way to get things done? Like, you have to hit people where you can get their attention, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know who it would fall under either. I'm not sure if there's like a person that already exists that does it, or I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I mean, right now there isn't, because it's a written in law, but there's no one. It's not in a building code. It's not in anything that they must complete before they can operate. You know what I mean? Like, if they're operating and they're not being shut down for these lack of codes, then there's not a person that's maintaining these all the time. But then where does the having to prove the cost come in? Because the rep for the hotel says that, the Aloha Hotel that was mentioned, first in the article, says that it would cost $30,000 for the electrical upgrades and infrastructure and everything else that they would need to put in the lift, whereas the lawyer for the woman who's starting the suit said that it would cost $2,000 to put a lift in. Like, what? Should they be shut down if they're not complying with ADA, or should they just be having to pay damages?
Yeah, I think I wasn't really aware that ADA was just like a civil rights law and didn't necessarily cover any type of implementation. Because that just seems so strange that it's saying that all of these things need to be accessible, which they, I think we all agree that they should be, but then there's no laws regarding implementation. It's just so strange.
And I feel like in one part of the article, it was saying, like, basically hotels have a choice. Like, they can be in compliance with ADA and pay all the extra money, or almost like play a game of chance and see if anybody notices with a disability that can't access the hotel or the public place, and then deal with the litigations based on their findings.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, as far as there being a wiggle room, if there's a wiggle room and all you have to do is prove the expense, is that even fair? Does that even make sense for the law to have this available wiggle room?
I mean, the article was saying, I don't really know it. I kind of didn't understand everything, but it was saying that to prove that wiggle room, to prove that it's not readily achievable, can also be really expensive for businesses too. So I don't even really know exactly what that entails to prove that, but it just seems all around, if this was done initially, it seems like that would save expense.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you guys tried to look up the ADA at all, but it was like, everything I found was either a really long, lengthy, difficult to navigate, like, legal document, or was about things like that. And it just kind of calls into question then, how what's the best way to go about this,
And that the article kind of brought that up too, that the owners aren't trying not to be accessible. They want as many people as possible to their facilities. They want that business. But yeah, if ADA itself is difficult to understand, and there's so many regulations, but there's no laws for implementation and like helping owners with that, like, that's a really tricky situation to put people into.
Yeah. And plus I think it gets sticky too. What if What are like public places I understand, but then what would happen to like private places or smaller businesses? Like, would they also have to follow that too? So
Exactly. And then like if there's a historic building that was, turned into a hotel or whatever and may not have the space or the like the infrastructure or whatever they talked about in the article that it needs in order to make that accessible, do you sacrifice the historic value to make it accessible for everyone? Or what comes first? The accessibility for people with disabilities or like the architecture of the building? I mean, that seems like a silly question as it's coming, as I'm saying it, it's like people first, obviously, but I mean, I feel like that could be debated.
Yeah. I think in my head, like having come at this from the con stance and just trying to prepare myself in that way, I can see people saying, well, then I'm going to prove that it's not readily achievable to protect the integrity of this building. But me, like my personal self, like you said, it would be that people come first, and that would be more important that everybody feels that they're able to use this and present the building.
Yeah, I mean, there was even some things like I wrote down that the woman who was from the hotel said something like that's a lot of red tape for one person that wants to spend $50 to get in the pool. And even though I kind of questioned the legitimacy of the lawsuit, if that's actually the standpoint that the hotel is coming from, like that to me sounds pretty ignorant. And is that fair? Is that right to come from that mindset of like, oh, well, that's too much money for one person? Is that okay to say?
I mean, I kind of wonder if their stance would be different if she hadn't filed so many lawsuits. Like if it was someone who was trying to stay there, wanted to kind of be a long-term, customer and stay at that hotel. I wonder if their stance would be different, had she not filed over 300 different lawsuits, which makes it seem like she's just trying to get at every hotel she can. So.
yeah, I agree with that. And then it said like some of these hotels she would send somebody else out to go see if they were accessible. So.
Right, she'd call ahead and then send her representative to check it.
But wouldn't you check to see if it's accessible before you went anyway? Like, I feel like I would, if I needed that, I would find a way to check whether or not I was going to stay there. And because you have to find one that you can use the pool before you decide that that's where you're going to go.
That's true too. That's true too. I just then wonder kind of like I don't know, what's the next step then? What's the best move? Because, I mean, damages, is she suffering damages? It's tough to say. But at least, in the lawsuit, she does claim the need for fixing the problem. Like, that's part of the suit, that if she were to win and if she were to take it that far, that they would have to fix it. But they're also looking to settle. So it's kind of tricky. Did you guys have any other thoughts or anything? We're cutting it a little bit close with time.
I think I'm good.
All right, awesome.